Oh, hi there, everybody. Michele Marsland and Marsland Accountants. And today I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to do an interview with Oddy, who is my manager in the accounts practice. And he deals a lot with landlords and landlords' accounts, and he also deals with a lot of small business accounts as well. So today, Chris and I are going to talk a little bit about landlords and a few things that pertain to landlords, particularly current items about tax and such like. So at the moment, there's a lot of talk, isn't there, Chris, about capital gains tax out in the world with the new change of government. So what do people need to know about if they're thinking of selling all of a sudden? What are a few things that they need to know about capital gains tax?
Well, so the current rules in progress at the moment, if you're thinking of selling your residential property that you've been renting out as a landlord, is that you'll have a £3,000 tax allowance. So once the property's sold and you've got the taxable profit, the first £3,000 of that is going to be tax-free, and then the rest of it is going to be taxed. The tax rate will depend on what income bracket you're in. So if you're in the standard one, then it's going to be at 18%, while if you're a higher rate taxpayer, it's going to get taxed at 24%. Obviously, what tax band you're in will be affected by the capital gains tax itself. So just because you may be a basic rate taxpayer at the moment, you may also go over that once the capital gains is being calculated. So that's something to consider and definitely discuss with your accountant when you are thinking of selling a property and looking at what the tax elements are. Obviously, if it wasn't a residential property, the capital gains tax rate is 10 to 20%, and that's for different sales, and that's something to consider when looking at it yourself without speaking to your accountant. It's an easy mistake to make, because when you Google capital gains tax, if you don't put in residential properties, that's the rate that you're probably going to see. But any other changes, we'll have to wait and see what happens in the budget in October.
Yeah, so the budget 30th of October, so a Wednesday, the 30th of October. So we're looking forward to it tremendously, aren't we, Chris? So
yeah.
A few more changes in the offing. I can see that. There's talk of a few more tax rises. But I think at the moment, there's a lot of landlords that are thinking of selling. So they just need to know that they do get an allowance of £3,000, and then they will have to pay tax on the rest. So just to work out roughly, how does a taxable profit work out in the first place, Chris? Just roughly.
Just roughly. So essentially, you have the sale price, and obviously you'll get the allowances of the expenditure that you had to pay for that. So the agent fee that you would have paid, and obviously the accountant's fee for preparing the capital gains tax. And then if you've had any improvements on the property over the years which haven't been an allowable expense and are a capital expense, then those will be taken into account. And then you'll obviously have the purchase price when you first received it. Again, the legal fees that you had to pay for that at the time. And the other thing to consider is you may be thinking, oh, what if you inherited the property and you didn't purchase it? Well, then there would be a price that was valued at the time, and that's what would be used instead.
Yeah. So basically, it's selling price minus purchase price gives you your profit, really, because that's
exactly
a common misconception, isn't it, really, amongst people? They don't really know how it's worked out. Yeah. And if you didn't purchase it, it's the value that you inherited at. Yeah. Excellent. So one of our most common things that people get wrong is mortgage interest. So tell people where they're going wrong with mortgage interest, Chris, please.
Yeah, so essentially the biggest thing that I find, and we've had it with multiple new clients when they come to us and they've been trying to do it themselves, is that they don't claim the mortgage interest because they've looked online and it says, yeah, mortgage interest isn't an allowable expense, which it is right. It's not an allowable expense anymore, but it still gets included because we get it given at a relief instead. So that tax relief is given at 20%. So if you had £1,000 more of mortgage interest in the year, you'd get a relief of the £200 on that. The big reason they've obviously done that is for the higher rate taxpayers, they're going to get their property taxed at 40% and then the relief only at 20%. While if you're a 20% taxpayer, the effect is still the same, but it's just done in a different way. But you still include it, because if you don't include it, you're going to be losing out and paying more tax, which is what has happened with people in the past.
Yeah. So they'd be missing out on tax relief because they misread something on Google. And that's why you need a professional involved, isn't it, really? So, but it happens quite a lot, doesn't it, when we take people on? So I think if people understand that, then that's really useful. So Chris, what's our most frequently asked question, would you say, from our landlords?
So from our landlords, most asked question is definitely, when do I have to pay my tax? And how much that tax is. Obviously, how much that tax is will depend on your accounts. So that's what we'd have to prepare for you. But when you pay that tax will depend on the way that you decide to. So if the tax is under £3,000 and you're employed, there is the option to get that tax taken through your tax code. So it will come out in the tax year in the future, and it will come out of your tax throughout in your pay slip throughout each month through your PAYE code. If that is the way that you choose, the deadline for that to be submitted is the 30th of December each year. If you don't want that and you want to just pay your tax each year, then the deadline for paying that is the 31st of January each year. The thing to consider though is if the tax was over £1,000, then there would be payments on account, and then that is essentially half of it is due in January and the other half is due in the 31st of July. But I think we'll do a separate video on that to explain what the payments on accounts are and all of that.
Yeah, it is one of those things that people don't understand. It is a different system, isn't it? It's not like if you are employed and it comes out every month, and most people don't see it, do they? So it has to be done differently because that's what self-assessment rules is all about. So what do our landlords often get confused about?
Confused about is the time period that they actually have to declare to HMRC. And the reason that that's confusing is because when you think of a year, everybody thinks of the annual year, which is obviously January to December, but that's not what you'll be reporting to HMRC. So the financial year end is the 5th of April each year. And so the accounts that we prepare for HMRC is from the 6th of April to the 5th of April each year. And then that's essentially what we have to declare to HMRC. But as I say, the biggest confusion is what year you have to do.
Yeah. And do you know why it's the 5th of April? Have I ever told you that or not?
I don't believe so, no.
No, all right, that's right. That's one of my little facts that I know. Basically, the reason it's 5th of April tax year is Napoleon brought it in to fight the Napoleonic Wars, basically, and that's why it's 5th of April is historically. So it's a random date, really, from what we're all concerned by, but that's why we're stuck with that from a long time ago now. So. Okay, what is our most common expense that landlords forget to claim?
The most common mistake is when going to the mortgages and you get the mortgage remortgaged, people forget about the arrangement fees on top of them. They're often missed because of the fact that it just gets added to the mortgage and the client just goes, okay, we're just going to put the mortgage interest on because that's all I'm allowed. But the arrangement fees can also be included. So that's obviously something that we look out for when clients have remortgaged, but it is definitely something that people miss if they do it themselves.
Yeah, okay. And so this is where we add value to clients, isn't it? It's the things that we know that they often miss. So, and I've got a nice little testimonial from a client who's been a client for actually, must be going on for 8 years now. So, and they've just sold up on that and have finished being needing an accountant and that. But at the end, they sort of say, oh, thank you once again for all of yours and your colleagues' help and support throughout the time I've been your client. I only wish I could say the same about the tax man. But yeah, so they're happy with the service that we've been providing for them for many a year now. And even when they're leaving us, they're sort of saying, but thank you very much for that. So that's really nice that people do appreciate the work we do. Excellent. If a landlord is thinking of changing accountants, or if they're thinking of setting up on their own at the beginning and buying a property, what's the best way of contacting Marslands?
So the best way to contact Marslands is to go to our website, which is marslands.co.uk. And when you're on there, you should be able to find a contact form and just fill that out and send that to us, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. Obviously, if you do it on Friday at 5 p.m, it'll be back on Monday. That's the only thing to consider. And there's also lots of other content on our website that you can have a look through and see more about kind of who we are
and what we do. Yeah, and shortly we'll have a get a quote now form coming as well soon for landlords, so they can find out how much our fees are going to be. So that will be there as well soon. But yeah, at the moment, just contact us through the website. Tell us you've got property. Tell us how many properties you've got, that sort of type of thing, so that we can then get a quote to you as well. So yeah, okay, lovely. Thanks very much then, Chris. And time to shine.